Hi, Christina Tobin here. You're joining us on the weekly, well, we're really 3 times a week now, United We Stand sessions. I'm Christina Tobin with Free and Equal Elections. Please welcome Aaron Hamlin with the Center for Election Science. Welcome, Aaron, to the session.
Thank you so much, Christina.
And I want to kick off, anybody listening to this, if you have any questions, feel free to submit them during the stream and I'll try to ask them. We're going to be on for half an hour or so. Aaron and I go back. We've done quite a few events together, it seems. And man, there are experts for all different types of things out there in the world. And I think with Free and Equal Elections, I just love learning from everybody and so many different areas. And Aaron himself is an expert in alternative voting methods, approval voting specifically. And so, Aaron, please introduce yourself, let people know about you, your background, and what the Center for Election Science is about. That's cool. Election and science. Oh, yeah, that's the future for sure. So welcome, Aaron.
Thanks so much. So I'm the executive director and founder for the Center for Election Science. In a nutshell, what we do is we empower people through voting methods to strengthen democracy. And in particular, we advocate for approval voting, which is a nice, simple, single winner voting method that you can use to empower yourselves and empower your community. It just means selecting as many candidates as you want, most votes wins. So we predominantly focus on that.
So are you saying the current singular vote that we do, where you vote for one candidate, not really good? Because I mean, I guess I agree with you. It's probably the worst. Why is it the worst?
So interestingly, there are a ton of different single winner voting methods out there. And it turns out that the one that we use, this choose one voting method that you described, is the worst one there is. And it basically fails in basically every measure that we can think of. It's simple. It has that going for it. But when you look at other properties that we think a voting method should have, such as good winner selection, being able to capture the reflection of support for candidates, it does those things terribly. And it's not too surprising because, one, you're hardly offering any information to begin with. And if you vote for someone and you don't think that they're going to have a very strong chance of winning, or maybe they're new, they don't show the vibe of being viable because of these kind of artificial proxy measures like having a big war chest or name recognition, you may feel disinclined to vote for them because you don't think they're going to win. And that means that great new ideas aren't able to get heard. And that's really a failure for everyone.
Wait, but singular vote actually is the best at one thing, Aaron. Okay.
What's that?
And I'm going to give it credit for what it's doing. It's really great at re-electing the most corrupt politicians over and over again, right? Like, really, singular vote, I give it a 5-star gold. I don't know, right?
I guess it depends. I guess it depends on what the metric is for good. If it's for making sure the same people get elected over and over again without having any real competition or having to think about any kind of new ideas, then it's definitely got that going for it.
Well, I want to thank you and your team, Caitlin, all you guys at the Center for Election Science for being one of our top sponsors for our presidential debate this past March. We had at Chicago Hilton 18 candidates. Somehow we pulled it off from 10 different party affiliations. And it was really cool. It was in Chicago, your neck of the woods, to have you in the audience there, not only supporting, monetarily, but also with your team's energy and even your presence. That really was appreciated. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, one of the aspects I've been really excited about with Free and Equal is with the debates that you put on. I remember back in 2008 was the first one that I saw that you had done. I was really, really impressed by that. And then you just kept repeating your skills again and again. So you've done a really phenomenal job there. Definitely look forward to seeing it in the future as well.
Thanks, Aaron. That debate fell into my lap. I think there's a reason why no one else has done it or held a debate outside of the mainstream Commission on Presidential Debates. Has been nationally televised, so I'm glad to take on the task, but I'm so glad this fall or even maybe the next presidential cycle. But it looks like we have several hundred different groups hopping on board with us. We're working with Chad Peace and Nan are out there with all the nonpartisan groups. We saw you at their summit last year, and the Bridge Alliance, and the support's rising. There's interest, but we're moving forward no matter. We can do it. It's going to be October 8th in Denver, Colorado. So would love to have you there and put that on your schedule or on your radar to help promote. It might just be the candidates and core production, and we'll promote it widely and put our proceeds that instead. So introduction to approval voting. Why do you support approval voting? Well, over singular voting. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but there's also other alternative voting methods as well. But, give us an intro to approval voting.
Sure. So in terms of alternative voting methods, approval voting is probably about the simplest there is. And when we think about, okay, well, what makes a voting method good, or why should we look at one alternative compared to the status quo? I think there are a bunch of different ways of thinking about that question. And so we look at factors like, okay, well, how transparent is this method? How easy is it to implement? So approval voting, you're selecting as many candidates as you want. The candidate with the most votes wins. So on the front end, it's very easy. It looks like the normal ballot. The only thing different is the directions tell you that you can pick as many candidates as you want. You have bubbles that you fill in just like you do now. You just can bubble as many as you want rather than being forced to choose just one. You can still choose just one if you want. You have that option, but you can pick as many as you want. And so you get this nice, simple ballot design, the same that you're used to. It doesn't take up extra space. You can hand count it if you want. It makes it very easy for hand marked ballots. You don't have to truncate anything because it's very easy to put that information on the ballot. And then on the back end, you're simply adding. You're figuring out the percentage of voters who approve of a particular candidate, and that's the metric that decides who wins. So it's very transparent, very easy. And then, so that's kind of the front end. And also, this method is so easy that it works on even the dumbest of voting machines. So even if you're forced to use a voting machine, it works on even the ones that aren't capable of doing very much. So that means you don't have extra expenses to implement the method, and you don't have extra expenses to do it in the future. And because it's so easy, you don't have any kind of delays with the result. So these are the kind of surface layer elements of approval voting. But a voting method has some other jobs too. So a voting method should do a good job in terms of selecting a good winner, and approval voting tends to elect a more consensus style winner, getting that candidate who is more in the middle, wherever that happens to be for the particular electorate that's voting. And then because you can always support your honest favorite with approval voting, and it takes in all that information, this very simple information, it also does a really good job of capturing support for all the candidates, including ones who don't win, which is really important when you have a new candidate who has great ideas, they want to get them out there. If they're perceived as not viable under a current method, they get dismissed. They don't get airtime. They don't get in debates. But with approval voting, they get that measure of support because voters don't have to be afraid of supporting them.
Well, speaking of afraid, you can go back to the good old, I guess you could call him the C. Ralph Nader campaign, or the C. Ralph Nader independent presidential candidate, meaning the spoiler effect candidate. I mean, okay, if anybody is spoiling and having an effect on spoiling our system, it's the people in office that have implemented singular vote. It's like shame on them in Florida. Nader told me, it's like, I think there were like 18 other candidates that had enough votes to make a difference, where Gore would win, all that. And, the system, here they are pointing fingers at an individual, when in fact, the problem is the voting system itself. That the fact that we have singular vote, which again keeps electing the same corrupt politicians, Congress, all members really at this point, D's and R's alike across the spectrum. So good on you for, going out there. You've had some great wins. Okay, I mean, who's going to go into Fargo and implement alternative voting methods? Aaron Hamlin and his team, Center for Elections, going to do it. Have you been out in Fargo personally quite a bit, or your team? You've had some wins out there, and also you have an ongoing campaign in St. Louis. Could you tell us about that in great detail?
For sure. And on your previous comment, like nothing gets me more angry when people shame others for voting how they really feel or shaming candidates. It's really like that concept in and of itself, that kind of terrible behavior is what got me interested in voting methods to begin with. So when you describe that, like that really hits home with me. And fortunately, like you mentioned, we have made a lot of progress. So approval voting, despite being studied academically since the late 1970s and being so simple, it hadn't really seen very much in terms of governmental implementation. So it'd been used in different types of organizations, but not in government. And so we got our first grant at the end of 2017. And within a year of getting our initial funding for the organization, we not only hired staff, but we also got approval voting implemented in its first U.S. city, Fargo, North Dakota, and won that initiative by 63.5%. We did that within a year of our initial funding. A voting method that had never been implemented anywhere in the U.S. before.
So cool.
And
well,
not anywhere in the world since Greece in 1920, before they switched over to proportional representation. So we were extremely excited by the win and the ridiculous pace that we were able to bring approval voting to that city. And it wasn't, while we get really excited about this wasn't just kind of like a tick box on our score sheet. The people in Fargo had terrible elections. Like, they were really awful. You were having people win with like 30% of the vote. Who knows who the actual best candidate was? And even if it happened to be the right candidate, sometimes the voting method doesn't necessarily change who the winner is. How are you going to lead a city when you have 30% of the vote? Like, you don't have a mandate there. You can't do anything with that. And so we were excited to give approval voting and provide people of Fargo with a tool that actually provide them with the outcomes that they really deserve. And so we were extraordinarily excited by that. And they just had their first election a few months back for their commission seat. That was technically a two-seat election, but still, even then, both the candidates who won got over 50% approval, and the candidates who didn't win also got to say, hey, like, I got support that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. They were getting approval support that previously would have only gotten to the candidates who won. Like, the people who lost, like, their approval support was similar or around that area in terms of what the candidates who previously won got. So that's just crazy to think about it in that context. But we're obviously not slowing down. The Fargo's mayoral election will be in 2022. But in the meantime, we've got the city of St. Louis that we've been working with. So we've had great people on the ground we've been working with there.
And so when people went to vote approval voting, like you said, let's say there's 5 candidates, you can choose one. You can bubble in one. If you like 2 of the 5, you bubble in 2. Can you go into details of how the count's done? Let's say of 5 candidates, like, how would you tally up the counts? Is there a possibility of a tie? Like, what sort of things? Did you hit any surprises in Fargo? Was it pretty smooth sailing? What was it like for the voters actually knowing what to do when they went into the voting polls in Fargo? How were you able to educate them ahead of time?
Sure. So the ballot itself looks pretty much the same in terms of what they're used to. The directions instead just said, vote for all the candidates that you approve of. So that part was pretty much the same. In terms of who, and I'm looking up one article. Okay, cool, got it. So the results indicate the number of approvals over the number of total ballots cast. So basically the percentage of ballots in which a candidate is approved of. And after this election, we also asked people and we said, hey, like, what did you think about your experience? And when we asked that question via a poll for people in Fargo, 71% of people said that they thought approval voting was easy. 62% said overall that they liked approval voting, and 62% said that they were comfortable with approval voting. And so that's a huge contrast compared to
first round too.
Yeah, the very
Cool.
first
That's
instance.
high.
Yeah.
Like you're like to be over 50% is, but you're over 60. So wow, cool. And how many people voted in Fargo? Just curious. If you have that.
Let me see here. I think it was.
Just curious how many, you don't really know, but like about how many voted for more than one or all five, or maybe not all five, but maybe 4 out of 5, or it's just interesting. It's so cool that you did it and you're spreading into St. Louis as well.
The average number of votes per ballot was 2.3, whereas in previous years it was 1.8 to 1.9. And that's interesting. So one of the kind of critiques that sometimes gets thrown at approval voting is like, oh, well, everybody, they're not going to take advantage of this. If there's only one person getting elected, they're only going to choose just one candidate. And what we see is actually and I think one of the things that makes that a little bit confusing is when we do polling or we look at elections, we see that people do, on average, approve of just a little bit more than they would otherwise. And it's easy to look at that and say like, well, what's the big deal then in terms of giving people this option? And there are really 2 big deals about that. One is that the percentage of people who say like 80% of people choose only one, or 75% of people choose only one. Well, that remainder, 25 to 30%, that remainder is often larger than the margin of victory in most elections. Mm-hmm. So most people don't win an election by 20 or 30%. And even if they were to do that, probably win under any voting method. And so having the people, giving them that option to choose more than one can become meaningful in elections when it actually matters in terms of being able to address that vote splitting. So even when a fraction of people opt in to say, okay, well, I want to choose more than one, even when that happens, it can still be meaningful. The other component of that is even when the outcome doesn't change, and again, changing the voting method doesn't always change the outcome, but voting method has other duties that it has, including making sure that people get that accurate reflection of support. So those remainder of people who choose more than one, those are also the people that make sure that all the other candidates get support that they wouldn't have otherwise. As an example of that, in 2016, we had done a poll, and we had done that with a 4-way race looking at Clinton, Trump, Johnson, and Stein. And when we had done that, most people in that 4-way race with that poll chose only one candidate, but that remainder, that 20% or so who chose more than one, that made a difference for those third-party candidates. So Johnson, remember in the actual election, he got roughly 3% of the vote. Under approval voting, under the poll, he was at 21%, 7-fold larger. Stein was at 1%, I think was her official vote. Under approval voting, she was 12%. And this is within a context when I think it was I believe it was a Gallup poll, and they had asked people, hey, have you even heard of who these other candidates are, like Stein and Johnson? And 2/3 of people said, I don't know who those candidates are because they get blacked out from the media. Well, this polling with them getting 21 and 12%, that's within the context of them being sidelined by the media. Imagine having approval voting in an election right from the beginning when they're doing polling and they're seeing the actual support that people have. It becomes nearly impossible to marginalize candidates the same way that they're getting marginalized now. So I suspect that if approval voting had been implemented in the 2016 election, not only would we have more candidates being unafraid of running, but also Johnson and Stein, they surely would have gotten even more than the 21% or 12% because people would have actually heard of who they were because they weren't able to get marginalized.
Well, it is super clear to me that the difference in those numbers from the 1 to 12% and Gary Johnson up to 21% is voters not voting from a place of fear. And what approval voting offers is you can vote your heart and your conscience. And the current system, we are where we are today because people are, for the most part, voting for the lesser of two evils, or voting for fear. But I'll tell you what, Aaron, in the future, I am so keen. The bumper sticker on the back of my car says, "Love is greater than fear." And some artists on the United We Stand tour, we are still proceeding. It's happening. It is happening. Our stop will be September 22nd through the 27th in Taos, New Mexico. It'll start on the equinox on a private ranch there. You're more than welcome to come there and come speak on that stage, because you will be a different type of speaker to a different type of audience, but the sort of audience that is fierce and aware and ready to take action and bring and implement the really love will win. And so in love and winning, your work that you do, people in the system and the media are so it's so clearly intentionally state of fear right now, mongering created by powers that be and bankers in Hollywood and so on. But, the system is crumbling. There are so many good people out there. I tell when I go in the world, I'm like, there are far more of us than there are of them. And Aaron, you're one of those good people. Just working to make the change in what you're doing, and what you specialize in, what you're an expert in. So thank you for that. Because when you and we and all of us multiply and come together on a stage, that is bigger than any one person, right? It's about coming together and accepting and being open to ideas, and not feeding into the intentional hippie or conspiracy theorist words that the system uses to take our power away, when we have every reason and right to express our opinions. And our stage welcomes all those peaceful ideas and opinions and the exchange of dialogue, no matter how different and diverse they may be. It was really cool. I was really glad to see you part of our symposium last year. You're on a panel with 3 other individuals that spoke of different alternative voting methods, like instant runoff voting and score voting and even star voting. That was a new one for me to learn. And you were just so kind and graceful, and I really appreciated your ability to have that, come together, and everybody on that panel for that matter. That was very cool to see. So national stuff. You guys got a national chapter program going on with the Center for Election Science. Please plug your website too. We can plug it again at the end if people are watching, so they can kind of go on there. I meant to say that at the beginning. And what's your national chapter program all about, Aaron?
Totally. So initially going in, we needed to show proof of concept, as we're doing with Fargo, North Dakota, replication and scaling. We're doing that right now within the city of St. Louis. They are voting on whether to implement approval voting. They will be doing that in November. And if it passes, which things are looking really good there, they'll use it as early in the year for 2021 for their mayoral election. And there's a lot going on in St. Louis right now, so it should be a very interesting election with lots of exciting candidates. But obviously, we're not stopping there. So Fargo is a city of 120,000 people, St. Louis, just over 300,000 people. And now we have a chapter program, which you can look at electionscience.org under the Take Action and then Join Chapters. We have chapters all across the country now in cities that are over 1 million in population. And so we're looking at cities in Denver, Seattle, Dallas, Austin, Los Angeles. We've got chapters in cities all over, and we encourage you, the listener right now, if you're just tired of the way that your city is getting elected, you are tired of voices not being heard, you can change that. And we are, as we've demonstrated, very good at providing resources and helping people to empower themselves and change their local election. And you can do that by going to our website at electionscience.org, take action, and then joining into our chapter program.
Nice. And when you pushed this and got people to support approval voting in St. Louis, what sort of people did support it? Individuals in office. What was the strategy of implementing this? Because you're dealing with a resistance in a lot of places. Because again, this is like as many things are, the gerrymandering, the restricted ballot access laws, and the voting machines being tampered with. And then we have no alternative voting methods. I mean, they're all protect the incumbent acts, like these sort of things that these people in office have allowed to happen. Why were you able to break through Fargo, St. Louis? What made it different? Like, what's a strategy? How do you achieve that in detail?
So I think one of the keys to the successes that we've had that we've been able to share with our supporters has been, we don't ask for permission. So there's a lot of conflicts of interest in play in terms of, like, imagine going to your local elected official and you say, hey, you know that voting method that gets you elected all the time, even when maybe you don't really deserve to get elected, I would like to go ahead and change that. Normally, they're not very excited by that. And so you try to get as many people involved and on board. But if there are key people that say, like, no, I don't like that, well, you're not asking them. You're just letting them know and trying to get their buy-in. But if they say no, the power is ultimately in the people themselves. And those are the people that we're asking. Those are the people who we are saying, hey, here's an opportunity for you to really empower yourselves. Like, we're going to provide you with all the tools. We're going to provide you with all the knowledge. And it's through this collaboration that we're going to go through and really allow you to get this win, for you to empower yourselves. So I think that's really the route that allows us to happen.
Well, you have the beginning of a proven track of winning here and overcoming the odds. So it sounds like all those tools, we're wrapping up an interview, are in greater detail at electionscience.org. Is that correct? The electionscience.org?
That's right. Yep.
Good. Sweet. Got it right. It's like, so I guess, to kind of, it's just kind of been on my mind. It's interesting to see. The big hot topic right now is mail-in ballots, right? What's going on there? And you see the voting machines and the flaws there. And I just, man, it's like the system is crumbling right now, Aaron, and they're just gasping for air. It really is. And a beautiful awakening is coming. The reason we're doing these United We Stand sessions and the United We Stand tour, which will probably be quite a few more stops next year or the year after, however it flows, and the presidential debates, is we're going to put all this information inevitably into our blockchain election app. So it's a blockchain ledger that will be powered by Nexus Earth and many others as well, coming together. And we're going to be putting these videos like what we have here. If people want to learn more about approval voting and Aaron, they can click on, go to your website, drive more support your way. How are you getting your support with the Center for Election Science? And I recall you had a grant in the past, probably individual donors. Like, how can people support? Obviously, they can go on and help in their local, areas and join the national chapter program. That's more than money. I get it. Let us know what we can do to support you and your team.
Absolutely. So we have Kirsten Elliott, our director of philanthropy, is wonderful. She's done a great job in terms of providing a donor experience for people. So, like, I think a lot of us are familiar with donating and supporting causes, which you can totally do at electionscience.org. We make it really easy to do. We're a 501c3, get your tax deduction. And I think one of the things that I'm very proud of our team. Like, we could not have done like Chris doing the chapter program, Caitlin doing a lot of our events and doing so much behind the scenes.
Love her.
and Kirsten really providing a wonderful experience for donors. And you can, when you look on our transparency page on our site, you can see our annual report. You can see all of our supporters. So you're in great company there. And so, and donating, I think you're going to look forward to the amount of support that you get from our staff, including Kirsten, and joining our chapter program as well. Really a wonderful experience to be able to see other like-minded folks that want to see the same kind of outcomes that you do. But so going on our site, going to electionscience.org, we have a nice convenient donate button. And if you have any questions, if you have any other technical ways of donating, I also have a legal background, and Kirsten has excellent resources. We're happy to maximize your impact with however you choose to give.
Oh, well, it's beautiful, Aaron. Well, thank you so much. Send love from the Free and Equal team to the Center for Election Science team out there, where you're all scattered around. Thanks for all the work that you do and being present in every way towards Free and Equal. And we hope and likely will be in a place to give back at whatever level we can to help expedite the beautiful cause that you are pursuing for alternative voting methods and approval voting. So, well, we're at the end of our little conversation, really, because conversations bring about solutions, and that's what we're doing. So, Aaron, thank you so much. Jessica will be in touch with more details about the United We Stand tour after this, so just touch base with her and see how we can collab there and make that a reality. We'll be live streaming that as well from private land. And it's really going to just be the artists, thought leader, speakers, and core team. And we're putting it all towards the live stream and promotion, rolling right into our debate. You see the vision you always have. So thank you again, Aaron. Go check out the electionscience.org and have a beautiful day out there. And I'll see you on the road, because real change starts from the bottom up. All right. Lots of love. Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks so much, Christina.